The sun hung low over the wide Texas plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The air was dry, carrying the scent of dust and sage. Tom Harlow wiped the sweat from his brow as he walked between the cattle, making sure none had strayed too far. He had spent most of his life on this ranch, and he knew every hill, every fence, and every familiar sound of the land. But something felt different that day, as if the air itself was warning him of danger. The sound of hooves clattering on dirt reached his ears. At first, he thought it was one of his neighbors passing by. But the rhythm was uneven, almost heavy, and it grew louder with each passing second. Tom turned his head, squinting toward the horizon. Dust rose in a slow, curling column, and he could see a figure on horseback approaching. The stranger's silhouette was tall and broad, and there was something about the way he rode that made Tom uneasy. His instincts, honed over decades on the ranch, screamed that this was no ordinary visitor. Before he could think further, a voice broke the stillness. It was high-pitched, urgent, and shaky. "Stop. He'll kill you." Tom spun around to see his neighbor, young Billy Crawford, sprinting toward him. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Billy, slow down. What are you talking about?" Tom called, his voice firm but calm. The boy almost tripped over a rock, barely keeping his balance. "The man, he's dangerous. You can't just stand there." Billy panted, pointing toward the stranger on horseback. "I saw him in town. He's got cold eyes, Tom. Like the devil himself." Tom's heart sank slightly. He had heard stories of violent men drifting through the area, but he never thought one would come this close to his ranch. He studied the approaching rider, noting the long coat flapping in the wind and the glint of sunlight off his spurred boots. The stranger's posture was relaxed, but there was a tension in his shoulders, a readiness that spoke of experience with danger and with causing it. Tom faced a choice. He could retreat to the safety of his ranch house, call the local sheriff, and wait for reinforcements. Or he could confront the man, rely on his wits, his knowledge of the land, and his instincts to protect his home and family. He remembered the words of his father: "A Harlow never backs down from what he knows is right." Tom's hand rested on the wooden fence as he considered his options. The stranger was getting closer, the dust from his horse swirling around his boots. Tom could feel the tension building in the air, a silent warning that time was short. He straightened his back, his mind clearing. Retreat might save him for a moment, but it would not protect the ranch, the cattle, or anyone else who might stumble upon this man. He would face the stranger, no matter the risk. "Billy," Tom said calmly, "go back to the house and tell my wife to lock the doors. Stay out of sight." Billy nodded, swallowing hard, and ran as fast as his legs could carry him. Tom watched him go, then turned his attention back to the approaching rider. The stranger's eyes were unmistakable, dark and piercing, holding a kind of quiet menace. People often said the eyes were the windows to the soul. And these eyes told a story of cold calculation. Tom clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He stepped off the path where the cattle grazed, moving slowly toward the approaching man. His boots kicked up small puffs of dust as he walked. But he tried to make his steps calm and confident, even as adrenaline surged through his veins. The stranger noticed him and slowed his horse, giving a small, almost imperceptible smile. Tom could not tell if it was friendly or cruel. "Afternoon," Tom called out, keeping his voice steady. "You lost, stranger?" The man tilted his head slightly, studying Tom. He said nothing for a moment, letting the silence stretch between them like a taut rope. Then he replied in a low, even tone, "Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not." Tom kept his gaze fixed on the man, looking for any hint of aggression. He could feel the tension in the air like static electricity, making his skin prickle. He knew that one wrong move could turn the situation dangerous in an instant. But he also knew that turning away now might encourage the stranger to push further onto the ranch. "Look," Tom said, "I don't know what business you have here, but this is my land. I've raised my family here, worked these fields, and taken care of these animals for years. I'm not going to let anyone threaten what's mine." The stranger's lips twitched, almost like a smirk, but his eyes remained cold. He shifted slightly in the saddle, adjusting his position. Tom noticed a faint glint on his belt, a handle of something. Maybe a tool. Maybe something else. Every instinct told him to stay alert, to watch every move. The wind picked up, carrying the dry scent of the plains. The cattle stirred, uneasy, their ears twitching at the tension between the two men. Tom moved slowly, making himself appear calm but ready, using the natural rise and fall of the land to keep his footing steady. The stranger watched every step, every movement, like a predator assessing its next move. Tom spoke again, this time softer but firm. "I don't want trouble. I don't want anyone hurt. But I won't back down. You need to leave this land." The stranger finally spoke, his voice a low rumble that seemed to carry across the open plains. "You're brave," he said. "Most would have run by now." Tom's jaw tightened. Bravery without action meant nothing. "Bravery's only useful if it protects what matters," he said. "And this ranch matters to me and to the people I care about." The man gave a slight nod, but his eyes didn't change. There was still that chill in them, that hidden danger. Tom could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. The hours of sunlight were slipping away, shadows stretching longer across the ground. But he stood his ground, unmoving, determined to protect what was his. For a long moment, the two men simply stared at each other. The world seemed to hold its breath. The quiet, broken only by the distant cry of a hawk and the rustle of dry grass. Tom's mind raced, planning contingencies, thinking about how to protect himself, how to stay calm. He relied not on fear, but on experience, on instinct, on knowing every inch of the land beneath his boots. Suddenly, a breeze picked up, carrying dust into the stranger's eyes. He blinked and shifted his horse slightly, and in that small movement, Tom saw a chance. He could either confront the man directly or use his knowledge of the land to guide the stranger away from the ranch. His decision had to be quick, every second mattered. Tom took a step forward, his voice calm but resolute. The stranger's expression didn't change. But for the first time, Tom noticed something in his posture, a flicker of hesitation. Perhaps he was assessing, calculating, realizing that Tom was not a man to scare easily. Perhaps he was reconsidering. The sun dipped closer to the horizon, and the long shadows stretched across the dusty plains. The cattle moved nervously, sensing the tension. Tom's hand rested near the fence post, ready for any sudden movement, but he didn't reach for a weapon. His confidence came not from force, but from understanding, from courage, from knowing that the land itself was on his side. And in that moment, the story paused, frozen in the last golden light of day. The stranger remained on horseback, just a few yards away, his eyes locked on Tom's. The wind swept across the plains, carrying the weight of an unspoken challenge. Tom knew that what came next could change everything, but he also knew that he could not turn back. The first part of the encounter ended with the air thick with tension, the land silent but alive with anticipation, and the two men facing each other, both aware that the next few moments would decide the fate of the ranch, and perhaps their lives. The wind swept across the plains, stirring dust and dry leaves, as Tom Harlow kept his gaze fixed on the stranger. The man remained on horseback, tall and unmoving, like a shadow against the fading sunlight. Every muscle in Tom's body was tense, his mind alert to the slightest movement. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on him, the safety of his ranch, his family, and the animals all depended on what he did next. For a long moment, Neither man spoke. The stranger's eyes, dark and calculating, followed every subtle motion Tom made. Tom's hand rested on the fence post, his mind racing with possibilities. He had faced danger before: storms, wild animals, cattle stampedes, but never had he confronted a human threat with such directness. The air seemed to grow heavier with each passing second, carrying the quiet hum of anticipation. Tom took a slow, deliberate step forward. "I don't know who you are or what you want," he said, keeping his voice calm. "But I'll say it again. You need to leave this land." The stranger's lips curled slightly, as if amused, but his eyes remained icy and unreadable. "You're a brave man," he said. "Most people would have run a long time ago." Tom's jaw tightened. Bravery isn't about running or standing. It's about protecting what matters. The stranger shifted in the saddle, his horse snorting softly. The move was small, almost casual, but Tom noticed the subtle tension in the man's shoulders, the readiness in his stance. It told Tom that the man could act at any moment. His instincts screamed at him to stay calm, to watch, to wait for the right moment. He knew he had to control the situation without unnecessary violence. He had learned long ago that fear could be as powerful a tool as a weapon, and knowledge of the land could be an advantage in moments like this. He slowly walked a few steps to the side, using the natural rise of the ground to keep the stranger within his line of sight, but slightly off balance in perspective. "You don't have to do anything rash," Tom said, keeping his tone steady. "You can walk away now, and I won't call anyone after you. But if you stay, you'll leave only because you have no other choice." The stranger's dark eyes held Tom's gaze for a long time. Then, for the first time, Tom noticed a flicker of hesitation. The man's hand twitched near his side, and his eyes darted briefly to the land behind him. The rocky terrain, the narrow dips, and the natural obstacles. Tom realized that the stranger was weighing his options, much like Tom himself had been. Then, without warning, the stranger's horse shifted suddenly, kicking up dust and startling the nearby cattle. The man's movements were quick, practiced, and deliberate. Tom reacted instantly, stepping to the side, keeping his balance, and watching every detail. He knew this confrontation could turn physical at any second, but he also knew that staying composed was his best advantage. "Easy there," Tom said firmly, raising a hand slightly. "I'm not your enemy, if you choose not to be. But I won't let anyone threaten this ranch." The stranger's lips pressed together, his eyes narrowing. He seemed to measure the ground beneath his horse, the distance between him and Tom, and even the wind that swept across the plains. Tom realized that the man was not foolish. He understood danger. But he was testing Tom, seeing how far he could push before facing real resistance. Tom decided to use what he knew best, the land itself. He subtly shifted his footing to higher ground, giving him a better view of the plains and a clearer position to react if needed. The stranger noticed, and for a moment, there was a silent acknowledgement, a challenge carried only in the eyes. "You've got guts," the stranger said quietly, almost to himself. "I like that." Tom didn't respond. He stayed silent, letting the man feel the seriousness of the moment. Silence, he knew, could speak louder than words. Every second that passed without violence was a second won, a moment where he maintained control. Then the stranger made a move, small but deliberate, a hand near his side, a lean forward in the saddle. Tom reacted instantly, moving a step sideways to keep distance. His eyes locked on the man's every motion. The tension between them was sharp, like a rope stretched to its limit. The cattle moved nervously, sensing the danger even before any word or action. Tom spoke again, calm and steady. "I don't want trouble. I'm giving you a chance to leave peacefully. You choose your path, now." For a long minute, The stranger said nothing. Then he leaned back in the saddle, as if weighing the choice, his eyes never leaving Tom. Tom could see the calculation happening, the silent battle of wills. He knew the man could act at any second, but he also sensed something else, an understanding that Tom was not an easy target. Finally, the stranger shook his head slowly and leaned slightly forward, studying the horizon. Without another word, he nudged his horse and began to ride away, slowly at first, then faster, disappearing into the dust and shadows of the plains. Tom watched him go, every muscle still tense, until the figure became nothing more than a shadow fading into the night. Tom let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His legs felt like lead, but his mind was sharp, focused. He had faced the stranger and survived, using not only courage but patience, knowledge, and control. The ranch was safe for now, but Tom knew the encounter would leave a mark on him. He walked back toward the cattle, his boots stirring small clouds of dust. The animals had calmed slightly, though they still glanced nervously at the horizon. Tom spoke softly to them, reassuring them with gentle words and movements. He had learned over the years that animals could sense fear, and now he needed to restore calm to the land. Billy, the neighbor, came running out from the direction of the house, worry etched across his face. "Tom, are you all right?" he called, breathless. "I'm fine," Tom said, placing a hand on Billy's shoulder. "But we need to be careful. That man, he's dangerous. And he may come back." Billy nodded, swallowing hard, still wide-eyed from the terror of what he had witnessed. "I've never seen anything like that. You didn't even flinch." Tom gave a small, tired smile. "Sometimes, standing your ground is the only choice you've got. Fear is natural, but it doesn't have to control you. The land, the animals, the people we care about, they're worth standing up for." The sun dipped fully below the horizon, leaving the plains bathed in twilight. Shadows stretched long and dark, and the wind carried a coolness that promised the coming night. Tom returned to the ranch house, checking the doors and windows, ensuring everything was secure. He thought of his family inside, unaware of the danger so close. He would tell them later, in time, the story of courage, instinct, and confronting the unknown. Sitting on the porch steps, Tom watched the stars begin to appear, one by one, over the vast Texas sky. The night was quiet now, almost peaceful, but he knew the encounter would linger in his thoughts. It was a reminder that courage wasn't about fighting recklessly, but about understanding the risks, weighing the choices, and standing firm when it mattered most. As the darkness settled, Tom felt a sense of calm and resolve. The stranger had tested him, and he had passed. The ranch was still his, the land still safe, and his family still secure. He knew that life on the plains would always bring challenges, storms, wild animals, and sometimes dangerous strangers, but he also knew that courage, wisdom, and respect for the land would guide him through whatever came next. The story of that day would stay with Tom, a lesson in vigilance and bravery. And though the stranger's eyes had been like the devil's, cold and unyielding, Tom had faced them, and he had not turned away. The rancher rose from the porch steps as the night deepened, taking a last look over his land. The plains were quiet, the stars above bright and clear. Tom Harlow felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of having met danger and met it well, not with fear, but with courage and determination. And for that night, at least, the ranch was safe.